Fan questions, Frank. That is what this episode of Phone Booth Fighting is going to be all about. As we knock this one out guerrilla style, we are at Stately Mare Manor, where Frank is due to hit the road tomorrow. So we're taping a day earlier than we normally do, and we're taping inside the secure confines of the Mir household in what looks like, if you're watching on our Phone Booth Fighting YouTube channel, that maybe we're at a banquet table in a conference room, but it's the dining room here at Frank's house. And so the studio, there was some work being done over there the last couple of days, and with Frank's travel schedule, we figured, you know what, we'll record a day early, we'll get together, keeps us consistent, and we'll just break out the mobile rig. So that's what we're doing. Before we get to fan questions, which we've got a ton of, we put the call out for those earlier today, and you guys responded in droves, so we're going to get to a bunch of these. Let's get a little business out of the way, Frank. First of all, the Amazon banner on the front of phoneboothfighting.com. What do I need to know about that?
We haven't talked about that in a little bit.
It's your cue.
One of the easiest ways to help us out here at the show, go on phoneboothfighting.com. We have an Amazon banner on the webpage. By clicking on that, it will portal you through to Amazon. And at that moment, any of your purchases that you incur will actually come back to us at a small percentage at no extra cost to you.
That's right. Helps to support the show. Doesn't cost you anymore. And we get a look at, if we're sticking it to anybody, we're just sticking it to Amazon, which always feels good.
Big corporations.
That's right. Fight the man. And support your favorite podcast. Also, official show merchandise is available at phoneboothfighting.com in the store. So be sure to check all that out. And there's a couple of ways to support what we do here and keep this going on a weekly basis. All right, Frank. Also, we got to let fans of you and fans of the podcast know that this week, Saturday, is it Saturday that you're making your pro wrestling debut?
Yeah, what day is it officially?
Oh, boy. We better make sure we don't show up too late.
I'm getting there.
All right.
Joe got it all.
Don't show up and say, I thought it was Saturday when it was actually Friday night.
You know how you have dreams that you miss school and
yes.
stuff? I have had dreams where I'm at home and they're like, dude, you're up in 5 minutes to go fight. And I'm trying to rush to get to the arena.
You know what mine is? Mine is whenever I am hosting.
Oh, yeah, no. See, it's Thursday, my grappling match.
Okay, it's Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday
so the Bloodsport match is on Thursday.
Okay.
And then I'll be doing some autograph signing and stuff at the Expo because they have it's WrestleMania weekend.
Yes.
Weekend or whatever they call it.
Now, this is taking place in New York or is it New Jersey?
New Jersey.
Okay. This is Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, which Josh Barnett, former opponent of yours.
Jersey City.
Okay, Jersey City, New Jersey. Now, is WrestleMania in New York this time, or is that what's going on?
Here, I'll ask me questions.
I know. Here, I'll look it up real quick.
Talk to me about choking people, dude. No.
Yeah, I do know that. I do know WrestleMania is this weekend, and I know that. Oh God. Okay, hold on. I'll figure this out in a second where it is. But I know that WrestleMania is like the Super Bowl of pro wrestling. This is a big deal in the world of pro wrestling.
As we're talking,
just look up WrestleMania real quick. Tell me where it is, because they always have it in a big stadium every year. But sometimes it's like in Miami and Orlando, and then sometimes it's on the East Coast, and I think it moves around year to year. So the point being that obviously Josh Barnett wanted to put on a big wrestling show in the days leading up to.
It'll be at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey.
That explains it. Okay, so with that going down Sunday, wrestling fans come in and they're there for the whole week and they're looking for other stuff to do, and this is going to be a great thing for them to go out and see on a Thursday night, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport. Now, for those who are not in attendance, they can stream it on Fight TV. It's going to be available there.
That much I knew.
Yeah, that's how I'm going to be watching it. But let's just a little bit about what you know so far about this pro wrestling endeavor, because Josh Barnett is putting the card on, but he's matched you up with UFC Hall of Famer Dan Severn.
Yeah.
Okay. And Dan has pro wrestling experience. When I worked in pro wrestling, Dan was already out of the UFC, and he would come through from time to time and wrestle in our little NWA promotion because he was the champion there. So that's a guy who knows some things about the world of pro wrestling. And Our mutual friend, noted pro wrestling superstar and fellow vegan Austin Aries has been helping you out, right?
We've been working on some stuff. Yeah, Austin's very knowledgeable in the sport, and then his advice is probably a little bit better than Josh's, or maybe Josh's is the better advice. I remember Josh came out here and we were training together, and I asked him, like, so what do I do? He goes, you know what we're doing right now? I'm like, yeah. He goes, just do that. I'm like, oh, just go? He goes, yeah, just go. I was like, cool. All right.
Yeah. So, does it feel natural?
Yeah, we're just fighting.
Yeah. Listen, I have always said that because in the last couple of years of maybe more, but certainly the last few years, pro wrestling, MMA has definitely had an influence on it. Because you've seen guys, cross over one way, like Brock Lesnar from wrestling to MMA. Ronda Rousey the other way from MMA to pro wrestling. In fact, she's in the main event this year at WrestleMania.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But I've always thought, okay, obviously Ronda is going to do an armbar in WWE, but she's not going to actually snap anybody's arm. But I've always thought, not necessarily with her, but with other performers that I've seen, you could do these jiu-jitsu moves and make them look realistic. Just don't squeeze. That's the deal. Like, don't squeeze as hard as you can. Because it's interesting to me the number of times I will see somebody in pro wrestling simulate their version of a jiu-jitsu move, but it's wrongly applied. You know what I mean? Where you're just looking at it going, it doesn't work that way. And I think with more and more fans becoming educated, there needs to be attention to that, even though the outcome is preordained
at least that's one thing
or
I bring
whatever.
to the table is that obviously I know how to do the move for real and I can apply it properly. So there's going to be no dicey bullshit in that area. And then, it really is interesting to me because, I think this is definitely a good shoe-in or, first step because it is essentially just MMA, not a full-blown. We won't even be in a ring. So, in fact, with Austin, I was working on some of the ring understanding of how to, from rope to rope, buckle to buckle, and some of the technique. And actually, I was picking it up pretty quick just because so much of it is just body awareness. Mm-hmm. And obviously, I've been a lifetime martial artist, tumbling, and rolling and doing cartwheels and so that stuff I picked up pretty easy and really I'm eager to learn all that stuff, not just I think some guys, and that's I think the mistake a lot of guys make, and I've learned not to make that. Like I remember when I first really delved into boxing, I was like, hey, I don't want to be like all the other grapplers who just want to learn enough about boxing, how to beat it. You know what I mean? Like, how can I beat it in a fight? I'm like, no. I'll come in here. I'll wear the boxing shoes. I'm going to become a boxer. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of guys don't do that. So many guys will come in the gym and want to learn jiu-jitsu. And they're like, I don't want to learn jiu-jitsu. I just want you to show me a few tricks or the basic concepts, to be able to avoid it. I'm all, the easiest way to avoid it is to understand how to do it. And then you can avoid it in the fight if you want to. It's going to be a tool in the back of your pocket. And so with the pro wrestling stuff, I'm actually wanting to learn how to do it. Plus, too, it isn't like I got a lot of competition. Most of the guys that are good pro wrestlers have great, character. They're not real fighters. They're really pussies in real life. And then you have guys that are really tough, like say like a Cain Velasquez who can go with pro wrestling, but has zero fucking personality. Who wants to hear him talk, And so I think I have the advantage of being decently, I've got a couple world titles under me. Well, I could fight, and then, and I'm not too bad at talking.
Yeah. Yeah, I think and the nice thing is, too, you've kind of got a built-in character, which is yourself. You don't have to craft something.
No.
Hey, Austin, speaking of Austin... Here comes Austin Aries. We speak of the pro wrestling devil. We were just
we can't hook up 3 mics. So
we were just talking about it. You know what? I don't have it, but it's okay. Just bring him over here for a second. Yep.
Come on in, man.
Come on over here. No, you stay there, Frank. Wait. Oh, you have to move?
No, I'm just moving the chair.
Oh, okay. And then we'll put him. There you go. Okay. There we go. We got a little spontaneous reconfiguration here. All right. Let me make sure I got him in the camera shot. Come on over closer, Austin. Keep on coming over, a little closer, a little closer. There we go.
See, already sticking around with me now.
All right. All right, here's Austin. Now you guys are gonna have to share the mic. So when he starts talking, point the mic toward him. There we go. All right, Austin. We're actually
are we?
well we're at Stately Mirror Manor. We're streaming on our Phone Booth Fighting YouTube page, and of course the podcast is available wherever you podcast, iTunes and otherwise. We were just talking about Frank's pro wrestling debut this weekend, the fact he's been training with you and all that. So give me a little scouting report on what you see with Frank Mir, not the two-time UFC heavyweight champion, but Frank Mir, the debutante pro wrestler.
So the cat's out of the bag, huh, Frank?
Well, yeah, I started talking about it already.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. What? How's he doing?
I guess we can
What are you
always edit it
seeing?
in the end.
Yeah, boy.
I wasn't telling him what secret you're teaching.
I know. This is going to be interesting.
You know, on one side note, one thing I really love about so far learning about it is that it's not what I expected it to be honest with you. I really was thinking, oh, you're like a stunt man on a live TV set. I think that's the expression I actually used. And not that I can talk too much more about it, but it's not. It's not. There's so much more to it than that.
Oh, are you teaching him? Like, is he learning to protect the business? Are we in that point already?
That's how I was brought into the business. And I know we got a lot of parody pro wrestlers out there right now.
Yeah.
A lot of cosplay pro wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, the winking at people. And that's cool. Like, you know, listen, you know, but I was brought in to kind of protect the industry and the magic. I think when you say it's kind of like magic. It's like, it is magic.
Yeah.
It is. At its best, it is.
That's what I actually said it was. It was more like street magic. Where here you're doing something in front of people from all different angles, and everybody wants to figure it out, and your job is to make sure it's not. And I think that's actually pretty cool, bringing back an element of like, hey, this should be considered more intensely, more intense, you know, more dramatic. I mean, who the fuck goes to a movie and watches the movie and go, yeah, it's the stunt guy doing that. Oh, I know how that's a rig. Like, you want to get lost in it. You want to get buy into it. And I think too many of the guys now in pro wrestling have the parody of it. I think, like, talking to Austin, I look at it and go, you're absolutely right. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy who go, see the fucking rope. And it's like, no, man. Like, you know, you came here to be entertained by, you know, a war, and let's make it, you know, truly, you know, captivating.
A point I brought up to Frank was I recently went and saw some training, a couple different schools, you know, and obviously I get to travel a lot, and so I see, you know, I go to schools and kind of see what they're doing. And when I realized, I told him, like, listen, I'm not some aficionado or some you know, shooter or whatever, but when I was taught how to actually apply the real holds and then the magic. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But so, you know, a wrist lock, a hammer lock, you know, an arm bar, like, these are all legitimate things. Even a collar and elbow, so the most basic of grappling things, is a real technique that when I'm going and watching these schools now, none of these kids know how to actually do the actual move. They're just learning the parody of the of
which
grappling.
Actually brings up what Richard was talking about. Just before you got here, we were talking about that. He goes, you see so many guys now that do the move, and now because people are so much more, because of MMA, understand submission holds. He goes, you look at it and go, oh, that's not how that move works. That doesn't move works at all. Right? Because the guy is so sloppy at the application.
Well, and then how is, if we're trying, you know, if you've never actually been in a fight, real or, you know, in a, you know, combative, you know, sport setting, how can you then sell the realism of that? How, you know, and so it's just it's interesting place that wrestling's in right now. To go back to your original question without giving away too much.
So you're saying that if you're going to do soft core, you have to at least not be a virgin.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, right. Yeah. I you know, it's funny. I had one time some guy he was preaching to me, so, you know, marijuana, he's just going off, he's up on this really high soapbox on marijuana, just how bad it was back in college. You know, and I just, you know, and I've, you know, and I said, well, what are you basing this on, man? He's like, it's just to ruin your life, and people get lazy and this ruins their life. I was like, okay, well, my friend, I said, you ever smoked? He said, well, no, but my friend, you know, it didn't ruin his life. I was like, wait a second. You've never done this, but you're here to tell me how bad it is. That's like a virgin telling me like how terrible sex is. Yeah, you know, you can't have sex; it ruins your life. Anyway.
How long did you work with Frank before you realized it's easiest to communicate with him in porn analogies? Was it like 1 hour?
Oh, well, we actually started that, I think, just at the gym before we got in the ring.
Then a
lot of homosexual jokes, pornography.
Yeah, which, you know, back in the day you could get away with because it was jokes and there was no actual like real intent behind it. But now, because everything's in a tweet, and we we now consume things to react and respond, not to comprehend or put any context behind it. So
Frank actually hashtagged you with Me Too right before you got here. So
like
there's
me, like hashtag
like you,
me.
yeah, like I mean, there's a whole
okay.
scandal now that
Gotcha.
you hear about. Like,
You know, the only way I'm allowed to release a tweet is first I show it to my wife.
Yeah.
And then I show it to Richard. If I get the approval from both of them,
Right,
I can go through.
right.
But usually it gets shut down at one or the other.
Yeah.
Like,
It's like the redundancy safety on an aircraft. You
That's
know,
it.
it's like, no, there's two things that have to be unlocked before anything could go terribly awry.
If there's one thing I would put in like a Brinks safe, it
Yeah.
would be all my drafts of my tweets that I knew I couldn't put out
Yeah,
publicly.
right,
Like, because
yeah,
that's mine. It's like everything is, oh, he's not really active on Twitter. Actually, I'm
Yeah.
very active, but they're all saved tweets because I actually put these things out. Like, like I would be the most talked about thing WrestleMania week.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be there just because I put a snapshot of my drafts that I couldn't say.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
especially with some of the stuff that's going on right now.
Were you
Yeah.
surprised at all with Frank's mobility and athleticism? Because I'll tell you, the thing that I always resent about being with him in like Drysdale's jiu-jitsu class is that this heavyweight giant can do a cartwheel and this normal sized guy can't. I try, but it looks so sad. And he can do things that a lot of larger people would have a hard time doing.
Sure. So surprised, it's not surprised because, I mean, you don't get to the level that he's been to without being a high-level athlete. You know what I'm saying? So I've seen him fight. And so the thing is, we're both around the same age with considerable wear and tear. So I see how we walk around, like in the gym, lift in between sets. But again, being a competitor, when you get in the arena or you get in the ring or the octagon, you flip the switch, and then it's again like Kurt Angle is the for a guy I worked with, the epitome of it. Olympic gold medalist. When he's walking on the back, it's like he's like taped together, and he walks out there and he's as good as he's ever been, right? And so so when he got in there, just see how fluid he was, and he is light on his feet.
wrestled for a gold medal with a broken neck.
A broken freaking neck.
Yeah, that dude's fucking probably one of the toughest human beings I've ever.
Yeah, one of the few times I've been in a ring and like legitimately like intimidated, not in a bad way like I thought, but just like
if he had gone into MMA, he'd have been a world champion.
Right. I mean, he's just
no doubt in my mind.
Legit, and such an entertaining guy too. Then that's why he was so good at what he did. But no, listen, I expected him to be able to pick it up quick because of his background, but he picked it up really quick. Like, but again, there's a translation between a lot of the techniques he's done and a lot of the stuff that we're going to do. And then again, with wrestling, let's stick to what he knows. We don't need to reinvent Frank Mir.
Yeah.
And talk about that. I think that's also, if I had gotten somebody that wanted to coach me who didn't understand the real submission moves, I probably would have went that route. Like, hey, I need to find someone who's like a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, wrestled in high school at least, and knows how to pro wrestle. Whereas immediately right off the bat, like Austin stuck me in a Kimura, he called it hammerlock. He switches around and goes, okay, this is how you do it, but this is how, he goes, but we're going to grab here instead to give more range of motion so I can play and you could do. I'm like, oh, okay. So like immediately grab me the correct way and show me so my brain can go, okay, so this is what I'm used to doing. These slight adjustments for this, or for this situation, for that. Oh, okay. You know what I mean? Like he communicated in a way that I can understand that language. If it just had been complete showmanship, I don't understand that. It has to be first show me, okay, because he understands the fight move. Okay, what are we trying to replicate? This move. And, okay, but change A, B, or C with it. Okay, or I'll actually keep everything the same, but just change maybe the angle or the intent. Even throw in the strikes. He throws, like, in fact, it actually threw my brain off. When he threw a punch at me, he put his whole body and hip behind it, and I freaked out for a second because my brain goes, oh shit, right hand. You know what I mean? Like a real shot's coming. You know what I mean? And then when he hit me with it, I'm like, oh wow. That's what made it so cool to me. The realism. I'm like, that guy just generated enough energy that would have rocked me, but didn't take my head off,
Yeah. Sure. Now, this is more the stately Mir manner I'm accustomed to. I got to tell you, when I came in, it was deathly quiet in here, and I thought I was in the wrong house for a second.
Yeah.
And
it's good. It was too early.
Come here real fast.
Nice. Uh-oh.
well, here comes Ronan. Now, this is shoulder pad Ronan version here we got there. Hey, Ronan, how are you? Haven't seen you in a while. How you been?
Good.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Did you just come from football practice?
Has anybody caught a pass against you yet?
No.
No.
Oh, that's excellent. Would you say so? What position are you playing now?
Cornerback.
Oh, so you're like the Deion Sanders
Yes,
of
exactly.
the
There
team.
you go.
How's that for some limited
for you, that
football
was awesome.
knowledge? Yeah, right. That's where you just shut down the entire side of the field, right? And everybody has to
that'd be
throw
like me
the other
naming
side.
some fucking obscure singer that you
Yeah.
know. Well, I guess Deion's not obscure, but the first fact you knew.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. So you had a good practice, and Cage is behind you. Now, whatever is going on with Cage's hair, I'm liking.
He's got the mane, dude. He's
yeah.
a lion. You know, that's the lion's mane.
Yeah, this is coming into his own cage here. Whatever's happening with that, that looks good. Keep that. Stick with that look. That's a good look for you. All right. Well, good to see you guys. Glad it was a successful practice, football practice. That's something I've never hardly experienced, Austin. I played just a few weeks of football and decided the guitar was more for me.
You were a smart man.
Yeah. My dad didn't understand it at the time.
More chicks that way, dude. The guitar, man.
Here's the funny thing. I actually had this conversation with my dad, who was so distraught that I was quitting the football team, you know. And his Hail Mary, the one that he when he just had tried everything else to try to keep me playing football, he looked at me, he goes, "But listen, son," he goes, "you're going to want to get girls, okay? And it's going to be important to play football." And I remember having the wherewithal and the insight to look at him even in, ninth grade and go, "Dan, I'm quitting football to focus more time on my band. It's going to be, trust me, it'll be fine."
Your band.
And it was.
Girls will work themselves
it worked out just fine. Yeah. All right, so anyway.
Actually, as a father, one thing I'm kind of glad about that with my two boys I don't have to worry about is I was really very insecure and so girl motivated when I was young, and and probably just because of all the therapy and counseling, just that couples go through and learning more about being a human being, being a man.
Yeah.
My boys are not. That's not the focal point of the existence. And at that age, that was all I cared about. To a distraction.
Sure.
And actually, Austin and I were having this conversation where he now has gotten. You say you're there now. I'm sitting there going, "Damn, man! How many great men are fucked up because we're chasing tail?"
Yeah.
And it messes us up. And I really had all these ideas, really atrocious ones I can't even talk about on air, on how to keep my boys from falling into that pitfall. And then now I'm just sitting there going, shit, man, it's kind of a breath of fresh air that maybe because both the parents are still married, I don't know what. Their mom and I have a great relationship, and they see that, and they don't. I don't know. The value of women is really good, and it's actually just less stress for me. I'm like, all right, that's not that you ever put your guard down, but man, I had the nuclear arsenal. I really thought that was going to be something that was going to trip my boys up.
I think part of it, they're getting validation places they need it.
Yeah,
like at home.
Like I said, not being so
in
insecure.
That help, right?
Yeah,
because if when you don't, then you're going to go seek it out. The most natural place versus humans is going to be from that.
You're right. Yeah.
There's not a lot of overcompensating that has to happen when everything is on an even keel. Yeah. Yeah. I was just having this conversation with someone this week about. Well, actually, it was in the dressing room at the comedy club. Actually, we were talking about it because we were talking about. One of the comics was talking about essentially what we were just saying, he was saying that his girlfriend and him had been fighting a lot, so he booked 3 weeks on the road, and now they're missing each other, so it kind of helped to create a little distance or whatever.
There is that to it. I mean, there's times when I travel, and I travel so much, I know Mrs. Muir hates it when I leave. But, being gone for a couple of days, when I first get back, then all of a sudden, the quality of time that we want to spend with each other is better. And because, my wife is just, she has an important job. She's the mom and the homemaker. So, her job kind of sucks, really, honestly. I would never want to switch places with her. I don't want to let her know that because then she'll, ask for even more money. I don't know. But their job's never over with. So there's that, but she's always home with me, or running errands. And then my job, I only work for a few hours here and there. So we're always around each other. But I think sometimes people forget, that constant, all right, we're side by side, hip to hip. Hey, we haven't really talked to each other today. I'm like, yeah, but I've been with you all fucking day. Whereas, when you hang out with your friend you haven't seen, I go talk to Austin, we go to the gym together, right? For the hour and a half, we don't shut up but I'm sure that if we hung out for 2 months straight, it'd be like, what's up?
What's up with roommates? I've had relationships, and then now recently, since in back in Vegas, you have some roommates, and after not having that for a while, especially when you're older, how you gonna handle that?
Yeah.
And I think part of it is at first you're hanging out and you're doing it, and then you settle in, and like you said, when you're around each other that much, you're not always communicating.
So your buddy the 3 weeks, I think is a good idea because then when he comes back, they'll really love each other more.
Yeah.
Where the road threw me off was, I basically from my late teens into my mid 20s lived on the road, 250, sometimes close to 300 days a year. And where it threw me off was even back then I had a real romantic side, but what would happen is you would meet the girl but you were never there long enough for the bad part to kick in. Like, you're only
always a honeymoon phase.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then by the time that was about to be over, got to go. You're on to the next place, right? And I remember when that ended, it was such a shock for me because, like, the first girlfriend that I had after that, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks we're into it, and I'm like, this is weird. We're still in the same place. Like and then it's getting to be like real life, and then strange like this. Totally, this is just to amuse you with a story. But I just noticed the other day on Facebook that my band's old road manager had passed away a few years ago. I hadn't stayed in touch with him. He was an older guy, but anyway. But he, the road managers back in the day used to do, anybody who's seen like Molly Cruise, The Dirt, that just came out on Netflix, like they had crazy jobs. And I remember, like, this was my idea of an early relationship. I had a girlfriend who, and I say girlfriend, it wasn't like a committed thing, but she was psycho, so it was. You know what I mean? It was in her mind, so that meant it was. And we were on the road. We started a tour in Roanoke, Virginia, right? She decides after 48 hours that she should just drive by herself straight from Dallas to Roanoke, Virginia, and just start following the bus on tour because she just didn't want the separation. So this fella Stanley that passed away, I remember him. This is the very young version of me, but I remember him coming on the bus and saying, Richard, your girlfriend she drove all of Dallas to here, or whatever. And so I had this other girl that was on the bus. There was a trap door in the back of the bus that dropped down into one of the luggage bays. The kids aren't around, are they? I feel a responsibility here. He gets the girl out of my bunk. He pops the hatch on the luggage bay, drops her down the chute with seconds to spare as the psycho girl is coming on the front of the bus, and she goes out the back and into a car.
Need to recreate.
Yeah.
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 That in a movie scene.
And let me just explain so that my sterling reputation stays intact. This was not a violation of trust. I was not telling that psycho girl that this was no, this was all in her head, but that was a early lesson I learned. That's all it took. You know what I'm saying? Like it was
because if I ever were to do something I shouldn't do, I gotta be honest, I'm never telling you.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. Richard's
Frank doesn't like the disapproving look.
Yeah. This whole integrity and honor thing,
That's it.
But on that marriage thing real fast, that's why I always laugh. And look, I worked at the clubs. I see guys do it all the time, right? You either going to be married or you're not, right? Because it's like having a roommate, right? You're either a person that can live with somebody else or you're a person who can't, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever roommate you have with you, now some are better than others, some are, it could be a little worse, but they're all going to run their gambit of issues, right? And they're all going to have some perks. Mm-hmm. But that's how it is being married. I think, like, no matter what, when you're married to another human being, it's like a roommate, right? Obviously, more intimate version. There are going to be problems that you run into you don't like, but you got to work through them, right? What I've always laughed about is when guys get a divorce from their girl and they want to meet a new girl, and they're like, oh, it's great. I'm all, you've known the bitch for 6 weeks. Of course it's great. Yeah. You're in the honeymoon phase. Wait till she's fucking doing your laundry and fucking cleaning up the dish that you left in the fucking sink. Then tell me how great she is. You know what I mean? Like, right? Like, so many guys, to me, like, if you divorce, I get it. You want to, hey, you tried marriage. It didn't work out for you. Now you're going to be single. And you're just fucking going to, hey, I'm going to roam around, date a couple girls, keep it at arm's length, but I don't want to ever live with somebody and answer to somebody again. Mm-hmm. I get that. Mm-hmm. There's times, look, even me as married, I'm like, man, it'd be nice just to fucking, if right now we're like, hey, let's all go get a beer. I couldn't imagine what it's like to get up and just actually go get a beer. Like, I got to go, hey, let me run it by you. You know what I mean? Like, I have a checks and balances, just vice versa. My wife can't just sit there and go, I'm going to go fucking shopping right now. Like, you got to ask me. Like, we're going to talk about this first, right? So, but when guys sit there and go, I don't want to be married to her anymore, but I'm going to marry her. They cheat on their wife and then marry the new girl. I'm just like, dude, you're a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? You either like marriage and you're going to work on it, or you don't. You know what I mean? This whole oh, she's so great. I'm all, sure she's great. You see her for a fucking hour once a week. You know what I mean? Like, trust me, if you only saw your wife for an hour once a week, you would see her best foot forward too.
Yeah, there's no time to fight him.
Like, I dated a girl's long-distance relationship for the first 6 months. We never argued.
Yeah.
It was beautiful, right? You know,
Yeah.
But it's kind of the same deal. And, you know, compare like when something falls apart after 10 years and how that relationship is there. And then in the first 10 weeks of the new one, go, see, this is so much better. Well, like I said, we'll get back to me in 10 years.
Well, that's why I always say to tell guys when I've had friends that have done that, got divorced and married the new girl because they had issues with the old girl. Have you ever met anybody that meets a different girl that actually all of a sudden goes, all the issues I had from before are actually gone?
No, they just start replicating them.
It's just the same fucking issues you had. You either don't like to be married, I mean, or you're willing to work through it or you're not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also, by the time most people get back in that new relationship, have they fixed all the problems they had that ruined their relationship to begin with, right?
Yeah, a lot of times
we don't
they're
take
just
the time.
cycling back through them. I wanted to ask you, Austin, because we were talking about Frank's pro wrestling debut this weekend. Now, this is on WrestleMania weekend.
Yeah.
And did you work a WrestleMania?
Yeah,
Okay.
Orlando 33.
Okay. I went to a WrestleMania in Orlando. I think it was probably like 25, maybe, something like that, a few years prior. But seeing, I mean, as big of a spectacle as it looks like on TV, seeing it live, it takes over a town, and it's a week-long event. That's why I was telling Frank, this is so great that his event is a couple of nights prior, because it's not like people just come in the day of.
No, they're already in there right
They're
now,
there like a
probably.
whole week looking for stuff to do, and they're going to the convention part of it and everything.
Quick pause. Hold on. My wife got this for you.
For me?
Yeah, they're like the greatest coffee mugs ever.
Well, thank you.
It stays hot. You know,
it's like
like the equivalent of what this is, where I keep my water ice cold all the time.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Nice.
You know, it's not even my birthday or anything. Wow, that's so kind of you. Thanks, Mrs. Muir.
You know that whole thing I said where if I ever did nothing wrong, I would definitely not tell you? That's why she loves you, because you're that guy.
Thank you. That's awesome. That's really cool.
Disney,
What?
Star Wars Land, but that's June 1st.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah, no, Mrs. Muir called me with some fantastic news today. Sorry, we're all over the map. I'm going to get back to
Don't matter. Hey, it's
WrestleMania
all
in a
good.
second. But we may as well, since
that's my brain.
Mrs. Muir just made a cameo there. For everybody who is a regular listener to the podcast that knows how much the Muir family and the Hunter family loves Disneyland, June 1st, we're going back to Disneyland as the two-family unit. And that's going to be exciting because it's going to be the opening weekend of Star Wars Land. So when you go with Frank, you get to do the VIP tour, which means they just take you and put you right on the ride. You don't have to wait in the lines or anything, which I think is going to be key, Frank, because they say this Star Wars thing is just going to be it's going to be like Calcutta.
It's going to be insane.
With the lines and everything. So I'm looking forward to that. You know, I thought about something, Frank, because Austin, Frank and I joke about how at Disneyland there are you can do these VIP tours where, you know, anybody can do those. You hire a tour guide and you get a certain set of hours, and then they'll take you around, and you get to go get right in the Fast Pass line, which is like the short version of the line. But if you're someone who will create a distraction, like if people want to do pictures or autographs with you or whatever, yeah, they put you on this sort of unpublished list, right? And so that's the secret VIP list. And then what they can do is they've got authorization to just take you around the back, all the rides, and put you right on. So that's experience you get to have with Frank. But Frank and I were in the car the other day talking about how Frank goes, maybe I can figure out a way to hire myself out for these things, because
I love it.
See, even somebody who's wealthy to do the tour, you still need somebody who's going to create the distraction,
Sure.
right? So then I thought, you know what it could be like? You ever go to Home Depot and the Mexican guys are waiting outside? So what we do is we sit Frank outside of Disneyland, right? But he's sitting there like on the curb waiting to get picked up for a tour, but he's got like the two belts on his shoulder, you know, like he's, you know, to create attention. I don't think he'd be sitting there very long. I don't know how long it'd be before.
I always do the Bieber.
Yeah, what's that?
Well, like when I'm there, I don't want to make the VIP attendant, hostess or host working with me's life any harder.
Yeah.
Right. So as people see me, and I tell them like, hey, give me 5 seconds with everybody that comes up to me. You know, I'll take a picture, shake a hand, you know, say thank you, hello. You know, the only time I want you to get involved is if all of a sudden it turns into an interrogation or an interview.
Yeah.
And then if people start, because then people start binding up. Because for some of you, even if someone doesn't know who you are, somebody randomly takes a picture of you, then everybody goes, well, who's that? And then you'll have people that just want to take a picture with you because someone else took a picture with you, and they're trying to Google who you are. They're asking, and then they're like, oh shit, I'll take a picture with you.
I believe your exact words, because I was there, I believe your your exact words to the tour guy was, if you see a subpoena in their hand,
Yes.
then we keep moving.
Tackle.
Yeah,
tackle.
okay. Yeah.
Fucking go for the legs.
Right.
But I don't post stuff that I'm there on social media. It's not that I'm being a dick towards fans. It's just at that moment I feel like, well, why make, if I'm here trying to, the purpose of the tour is to not jam the park up and get through as smoothly as possible for my experience, for their experience, for my kids' experience. I wouldn't do something, and that's what actually one of the guides I was working with. She said, "Yeah, I had, we were. I don't know if she had him or somebody else, but they were on. Bieber was there." And he goes, and then every time the motherfucker was on a ride, he would tweet where he was.
Oh, yeah.
So that everybody be waiting for him at the exit. Because obviously that guy is insanely famous. Every fucking, 10-year-old to, 20-year-old girl is waiting for him at the exit, right? And then he sits there and goes, oh, fuck, man, people won't leave me alone. And then run on and acts like, oh, come on, man, give me a second. And then the whole time she's like looking at her phone. She's all, they know where you are because of you.
Yeah.
Like, we're doing a pretty good job of hiding you.
Yeah.
You're not helping it. So that always stuck to me. I'm like, don't be that guy.
Yeah.
You don't sit there and go, hey, I'm over at, waiting at fucking Pirates of the Caribbean and be like, oh, man, all these motherfuckers want to bug me. I'm like, well, no shit, Sherlock. You fucking posted something.
You're giving them a map.
Yeah.
Well, this is how strategic I got with it, Austin. Because
Bieber.
My first time experiencing this, I thought, because I asked the tour guide, see, I'm thinking ahead, right? I'm forward thinking. And I said to the tour guide, I said, okay, hang on a second. I said, now, do you have somebody that from time to time audits the famous list? And if somebody's like, hey, you're
guy's not really famous anymore.
The star is dimmed a little bit. You don't want to get the boot off the list, right?
Sure.
So when we were doing the tour and the tour guide said, at one point, there's some people would gather around, there were pictures or whatever. I remember she said to me, she goes, should I step in? And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, no, because this is good because it shows a demand. See, we don't want it to get too out of hand, but at the same time, you want to prime the pump a little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly what you need.
Yeah.
Can't make it too smooth.
That's right. All right, back to WrestleMania. So it is a week-long event. There's all this stuff. I mean, for people who have not experienced it, how would you describe it as far as your experience working that compared to probably anything else you've ever done?
So, I mean, listen, you got to think there's 100,000 extra, wrestling fans in whatever town it's going to be. And this year, New York. So New York's already kind of an undesirable place to navigate as is. Now don't put another 100,000 people in there. The best thing is people know, the Super Bowl. It's like the Super Bowl of wrestling. But and I think the production is even bigger than the Super Bowl. The only thing that maybe rivals it is the Super Bowl as far as the amount of people and staff and the setup and the whole thing. It's amazing the amount of labor and money and time that goes into creating that spectacle, and yeah, it's like celebrating wrestling. It's this week-long thing, and so because there's so many wrestling fans coming from all over the world, you have all the other independent promotions and everyone else, kind of piggybacking off that have been, the last handful of years running different events and, podcasts and interviews and comedy, literally because, hey, when there's 100,000 people that are ready to spend money, everyone's going to show up to try to take a little bit of it.
Yeah. It was. I mean, like I said, it took over the whole town. It was. I mean, there must have been 65,000 people, if not more, in that stadium. It was really something. I just saw on John Oliver's show on HBO a ranking. That the actual value of the WrestleMania brand itself, just the brand of that name, not WWE, WrestleMania, is more valuable than the World Series in terms of what they actually pull in at this point. Yeah. Now, have you heard about this John Oliver piece? Okay. Do you watch this show?
I've seen John
Yeah.
Oliver.
Yeah.
I used to really, I probably watched him more when he was just one of the correspondents on The Daily Show.
The Daily Show, yeah.
And then I've seen a couple of his stand-up bits because I thought he was funny. In fact, because he's kind of a geeky little Englishman. He reminds me of Brian a lot. So that's why.
Your old ACB commentary partner. It's you should check it out because the interesting thing about it is he took on this past week the fact that WWE considers all their wrestlers independent contractors, and in that sense, not different from the UFC. There's some similarities there in terms of can you continue to justify somebody as an independent contractor when you are mandating a lot of rules that don't really apply to independent contractors. Did you happen to see the piece, Austin, or did you just hear about it?
I've watched the clips and obviously read all the commentary. I don't have HBO, so I haven't seen the whole thing in its entirety.
What are your thoughts? You think he's?
Because actually, you would have phenomenal insight on that.
Yeah. Let me think. Let me actually think before I speak for once in my career, because I have to be careful what I do and don't say here. Listen, I have a certain reputation in my industry, and I've been called some things along the way. A rabble rouser, hard to work with, in a lot of ways, because really since I started this industry, I've had a lot of the issues over the way the performers are treated. Mm-hmm. It's the circus, is what we like to call it.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And when you talk about things like UFC, I firmly believe they go, well, what's the bar we have to reach right now? What's the acceptable bar we have to reach? Well, that's it, and no one's reached to step over that bar. So that piece right there, it's something that's been said here and there over the years, but it's never really stuck. It's never really gained any traction. It's never really maybe been put on that type of platform. So it's an interesting time in wrestling right now, the landscape. You have another wrestling promotion that, looks like they have some legitimate backing to start up. And
that's AEW. AEW, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Backed by the Khan family, who own the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Mm-hmm.
So they're into the pro sports realm.
Mm-hmm.
So they obviously see how they treat their athletes. Mm-hmm. And so they're going to have some stake in this wrestling company. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens and how the shakeout is. You got a lot of money at stake. And you're asking now some real poignant questions as far as how the business model has been for pro wrestlers, because you talk about, you thought it'd be like stunt work, and it is stunt work in a lot of ways, but at the highest level that people can't even understand. Mm-hmm. And when you start talking about SAG and AFTRA and all these types of things, for actors and actresses and stuntmen and stuntwomen, we can do it all. And there's awards being handed out for these types of things and big money, and there's obviously people that oversee that. Mm-hmm. Why are we not included in that?
You know what I think the universal reality is that the corporation doesn't have a heart, because the corporation isn't human. The corporation just makes money.
It's allowed to be,
and this is WWE, UFC, Walmart, you name the corporation. Exactly. And so the equalizer in all that is the consumer. And this was something that was brought up in John Oliver's piece. He said, the WWE does listen to the fans. If they get the idea that there is fan revolt over a direction that they're taking, a large-scale revolt, they'll shift directions. And so if it's a loud enough noise. And I think the UFC is the same way, and I think any other corporation is the same way. So as big as the corporation gets, I think that the fans have to realize that they're actually the ones who are ultimately in control. They actually have more say than the athletes, than the wrestlers or the fighters.
100%. Richard, it's the same thing we talk about with food. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
You look right now, what's happened? Taco Bell rolling out the vegan menu.
Yeah, Burger King just did Impossible
who ultimately was the ones that it wasn't me speaking at Veg Fest, but it was the consumers who stopped spending their money and started demanding to have these options. And so I've always told people, that we think we can't do change. What can I change? Every time you pull your pocketbook out, you're voting for what you agree with and what's okay and is acceptable, whether it's what you feed your kids, yourself, the entertainment, the business practices. So you're spot on. John Oliver in that point was spot on, that we 100%. Instead of talking about the things we hate, and spend all of our energy on that, let's go spend our time and our money on the things we enjoy and are doing it the right way, and let's build them up instead of spend all of our time tearing the stuff down that's doing it the wrong way.
Yeah, the corporation is always going to go just as far as the consumer lets it, and they'll walk right up to the line and they'll find out one step over the line, whoop, too far. Doesn't mean we're going to all of a sudden turn into great people, but we're going to take one step back because we found out where the line was and the consumer dictated that to us. Let's do some fan questions. You want to do that, Frank? I tease that. Can you hang out for a second, Austin? You got to go. Okay. Well, it's so nice of Mrs. Meir to bring me this decanter. She is
so
thoughtful.
Yeah.
She really is.
I know. And I'm not thoughtful.
I see what you see in her. I don't see what she sees in you, but I see what you see in her. All right, let's see here. Well, here's an appropriate one because we've been talking about Frank's debut with Josh Barnett's Bloodsport this weekend in New Jersey. Here's a question from Mike D on Twitter, Frank. He says to Frank, any interest in getting the Josh Barnett loss back now that he just signed with Bellator? He said some crazy exchanges in the first fight with you guys, and the fight was arguably stopped early.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fight that I didn't agree with how the fight stopped. I thought the referee had more influence on it than he should have. So, yeah, anytime you have those kind of fights, and look, and everybody always wants to get losses back. Anybody that tells me they don't want to fight a guy they lost to, no, we're fighters. Of course, you always want to beat. I don't want to fight people I've already beaten. You know what I mean? Like, that's boring. It's like, oh, I've already gone there. What am I going to do? At worst, lose. At best, beat you again, and no one gives a shit. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. I want to on to the next or redeeming one. So, absolutely, yeah, if that ever could work out again. And now that I didn't know that Josh signed with Bellator, it was good news.
Yeah, that was actually news yesterday. In fact, they had to specify that it was not an April Fool's joke because it was happening on April 1st. Awesome. But, yeah, he's in, and there's history there, and I agree. I think that fight was stopped early, and there'd be, I think, a lot. I mean, you guys could – that's a main event. Yeah. Right there, you could make that a television main event, no problem. So I'd like to see that myself. Wait, can we get Josh? I mean, you guys are obviously friendly.
Yeah. No,
we need to get him on the podcast, okay? Because we need to talk.
Like in that fight, I have no issue with Josh.
Right.
My issue is with the referee.
Yeah,
Josh is doing his job, trying to kick my ass.
Yeah,
and the referee stopped the fight in a situation I didn't think he should have. And I'm honest with that. That's why I've always. Some fighters, no matter what, will tell you, I should have lost that. And then you don't know when to believe them because it's like, dude, you never fucking think you lose. Whereas I can sit there and be honest. Like if someone goes, hey, because I've had people I remember in the past come to me and goes, hey, the Mark Hunt fight. He hit you and rocked you and dropped you, but I don't know. Like it seemed like you were there. I'm all, no. The lights might have been on, but no one was home, dude. Like that was a good stoppage. No, absolutely, I was fucked up. He caught me with a really hard shot, buckled my legs. The only thing the referee could have done was allow me to take a few more shots just to prove indefinitely that that I was messed up. It wouldn't have changed the outcome of the fight, except for added more time of my recovery from taking a few shots I probably couldn't have defended against. But the Barnett fight's a fight I didn't feel like. I felt the referee fucked it up. So yeah, and Josh, like I said, he's a good guy. So the guy is actually a very interesting person to talk to be honest. Real astute historian of pro wrestling, hook and shoot type stuff. You go back, and then in MMA, so like martial arts, Japanese culture. Like the guy really is an encyclopedia of knowledge, And so like to talk to him, and then obviously his fight prowess is. I mean, the guy when he's done fighting is going to make a phenomenal coach. He's probably one of the few other fighters that I say, hey, they know as much, if not more, about mixed martial arts than I do. The average fighter is just a decent athlete or tough guy that'll step in there. Most of them you don't want to learn how to fight from. They don't know how to fight. They know they can fight, but they don't know how, or why what they're doing, And so Barnett knows the whys.
All right, we'll book him. Let's get him on the podcast.
When I'm there, be able to get him on.
Plus, he loves metal. So we can talk music. Yeah, he's very into metal. All right,
Renaissance guy.
Here's a good one. Yeah, total Renaissance man. Here's a good one. Actually, Austin may have a perspective on this since we got him here from Jake Stannard on Twitter. He says, "Do you think Brock Lesnar is going to lose his WWE Universal Championship this Sunday at WrestleMania and go back to the UFC to face Daniel Cormier? And if so, who do you think wins that fight?" So let's do this two parts. Austin, I'll give you the wrestling part of it. Do you think now? Brock Lesnar is at WrestleMania. His title is on the line. And, Brock is always a guy who is letting a contract come to an end and is negotiating and is willing to play one promotion against the other and all that. So is it possible that a dominating force like Brock Lesnar loses on the biggest stage of them all, WrestleMania?
Yeah, if he's got a deal in place to go fight Daniel Cormier.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to let him take, I don't think they'd want to have him to be the champion at the time.
Right.
So, I mean,
that's how it goes in wrestling. A lot of times the champion leaves the belt, right?
I just think that you don't have any conflicts of interest. Right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't really do WWE any favors to have their champion. It's apples and oranges, man, at the end of the day. And when people try to compare the two, I always go, it really is apples and oranges. Like there's some crossover in some aspects, but yeah, it's two different things. So I think he could, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think that if they really thought he had a chance of winning that fight, it might not be a bad idea to break precedents and have him keep the belt, because that'd be kind of cool for them to say, hey, he's the UFC champ and the WWE champ. Like that crossover idea. Yeah. But I think that they know that he pretty much has a snowball's chance of hell of beating Daniel Cormier in a fight.
Yeah.
And so getting the WWE's champ, getting his ass handed to him by a short, chubby, non-imposing looking fighter who we all know.
Doesn't look like the action figure.
I mean, the average fan that doesn't know who Daniel Cormier is looks at it and goes, that dude kicked your ass. It's like, well, that's the second toughest guy in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like 7 billion people. There's number 2. You know what I mean? Like there's only one other human being that draws breath that can kick that
beat
guy's
him.
ass.
Yeah, yeah.
And guess what? Brock's not that guy.
Yeah. And, well, you know what? Daniel is such a pro wrestling fan. It's funny you bring that up because now I'm working through it in my head. I'm thinking, all right, here's what you do. You have Brock come over. You put both titles on the line. If Cormier wins it, have him enter the WWE as their champion. Boy, that's the perfect angle to have him walk in.
Yeah, they're talking about a guy that, like Daniel Cormier, obviously phenomenal fighter, extremely knowledgeable, good coach. Like really, as far as the MMA world, checks off every box. You know what I mean? But as far as could he make money at pro wrestling, I think he would starve to death if he went into that industry. You've heard him try to talk. What was it after the Anthony Johnson fight? Like it hurt me to watch. Like you see your friend go up and propose to a girl that maybe she's fucking another dude, and you're just like sitting there going, "Oh man, this hurts just watching this." I remember seeing Daniel talking shit and trying to hype up. I'm just like, oh God, that hurts just to watch, man. Like I'm not even like a close friend. I'm just I feel bad for you.
Yeah.
It's a good point. I want to add, though, Brock never talks. He's got a guy Paul Heyman talks for him. So, so Daniel, if you do decide to do that, you need someone to talk for you. I'm your guy because I can talk. But I'm certainly not in the top 2% of the toughest men walking the face of the planet. So.
Well, I've told the story on the podcast before, but it bears repeating. If the Frank Brock match ever happened in pro wrestling, Paul Heyman and I have legitimate heat because Paul Heyman threatened to sue me when I was in my 20s.
You told me that, yeah.
So I'll be happy to jump in as the second there. All right, here's another good question for both you guys. Actually, this from Spinning Shit MMA on Twitter is the handle. You have traveled the world competing. Where was the best place food-wise?
Oh man.
And Austin will chime in with the vegan perspective here in a second, I'm sure.
You know what? Honestly, no.
Doomies, L.A. Yeah. When you were at Staples Center.
Like I've traveled the world and I've eaten some great meals in different places and different culture. And like I like food, so I'd probably have an easier time trying to tell you places I didn't like to eat. Well, now I can, because I've enjoyed almost every. Especially when you go somewhere, people really open their doors for you. Most cultures, especially that love fighting, they're open, let you in. Here's the problem, and you guys both know this. I'll go places and someone will go, "This is the most unbelievable thing." I'm like, "Oh no, this is really good." But I can go to a hotel in Vegas and I can find it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I hate to break you the news that I'm like, look, the casino and hotel industry in Las Vegas, they want to keep everything in-house.
The world kind of comes
They don't want that guy and that couple that flies to Vegas. They don't want you to leave the fucking hotel and casino, right? They want to keep you there. So if it's time to, think about things that you would have to leave for. Go to a show, and they bring the shows to you. Go to the movies. There's movie theaters in there. Obviously the gambling is the main reason they're there and why they want to keep you there. But if you got to eat, they have you're like, oh, Italian. Like, dude, you know that famous Italian guy from over there? Yeah, they went and got him and brought him here. Like if you go through like the best steakhouses, the best chefs, we really have it here in Vegas because – again, if you think you're keeping people in house at your restaurant, you ain't making more money than the casino is. And the casino's like, well, screw it. Whatever you're making, we'll pay you 5 times as much. And now you're cooking at my casino.
Yeah.
So that way, when you sit there and go hey, I want to go to a vegan place. You're like, oh, actually, the greatest vegan place is right here. You know what I mean? Actually, then that could be where you tell in. Are there good vegan restaurants at the casinos?
You just spoiled my big business plan that was crafting in my brain as you were telling me this. Is like, this is genius. Yeah. I'll bring the vegan chain to all the casinos here. So let's edit this out. Nobody heard this.
Right.
This is don't steal.
No one's listening.
Yeah, no one's listening. There actually there's a couple spots here that in the casinos. I'm trying to think which ones off the top of my head that have some good spots. But what they're doing now is they're having those chefs roll out a menu because I do a lot of soft openings or help go with a friend of mine as far as when they're developing the menus, right? Because they're realizing that again, all you're doing is excluding some certain portion of your people and a growing portion, so they don't want those vegans to leave either.
Their money is just as green.
That's it. It's true.
It's actually greener because
true.
it's plant based.
Yeah, it's
well, if you think about it. you guys are going to live longer. So to keep
That's right.
keep a vegan addicted to gambling is
Even
a much
better.
longer
Yeah.
payoff.
It's true. That's a good point. See?
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. We're actually starting to see it, to bring it back to Disney for a second. Jennifer and I are starting to see it at Disney more and more, where there are vegan options, and even just in the last couple of years, it's expanding. So, so there's kind of an answer to your question. I would guess Austin, Asia would probably be a good place for you.
Australia is my favorite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's got Melbourne and Sydney are two of the top like vegan capitals in the world.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
Okay. I've also never been to Australia, but okay.
We got to get you over there.
Yeah.
One of my something that does stick up in my mind is I really liked eating in Brazil because one, steakhouses I like, some of the best. I'm poisoning myself, but it was a good way to go.
Yeah.
But then also too, like I was in Sao Paulo, right, and they have and I've been to Italy. Sao Paulo might have better Italian restaurants and food than I had in Italy, which blew my mind. Like I'm sitting there going, I'm in Brazil. How am I having lasagna that is this fucking good? Like, holy shit, what's going on here? And then just, how it is with the immigration. There was an influx of immigrants that came back and then established a certain area. And man, the food was just off the hook.
All right, another question from Armin Yaunis. Frank, he says, when will we see your daughter fight? He's talking about Bella. It was a big week for Bella because I saw she got her learner's permit. She was driving you somewhere. Is that?
Yeah, she was driving me to her school.
Okay.
So she went and finally took, because she broke her ankle, put us behind about a month on her going down and getting the, because obviously other things became more important. But finally, her mom took her down and got the permit, passed the test. I think she missed 2 questions, so she did really good. So yesterday was the first time, or this morning, was it this morning I posted? Yeah, this morning, that she drove the car while I sat passenger. And she actually is a very good driver, very safe, which is kind of shitty. I was telling it to Ruben, the therapist, when he was in here working on me. I'm like, the only problem is that there's times where she's just being too cautious and too by the dot. I'm like, all right, dude, speed up. You know what I mean? I can't tell my daughter to drive improperly, but in my brain, I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
The gas is on the right, dude.
Yeah. Well, what's her? I know she aspires to one day
yeah.
fight in MMA. So.
Yeah, we're just taking it slowly. Honestly, there was talks about maybe giving her a couple amateur experience overseas because they're a little bit more lenient with the rules and the age. But right now, just keep focusing on wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and then when Carl or Princey's out here, we'll do more stand-up. But as far as pushing it to where she has to fight by 22, I'm not trying to set any records, and that's my kid. You know what I mean? So I want her to be, when she feels comfortable and she wants to do it, and it's something she wants. And look. If she trains every day for the next 5 years and all of a sudden comes to me and goes, Dad, you know what? I thought I wanted it, but I didn't. I'm not talking her into it. It's not like I'm sitting there, this isn't my dream.
Yeah.
My dream is for my kids to fulfill their dreams. If she wants to be the best violinist in the world, then fuck, let's get the violin. You know what I mean? If they just want to go ahead and be a fucking dentist, whatever they aspire to do, all I'm going to do is say, okay, how can I help you be the best possible at that endeavor so that it brings you happiness? Because that's really I think the secret to happiness in life is find something you like to do and be good at it. If you have those 2 things, because it sucks to, look, you might love to sing, but if you can't sing, your life's going to suck.
Right.
Right. But if you could find something that you love and be good at it, man, I think then that's pretty much everything else will work itself out.
All right, let's flip over to to Frank's Facebook page here. Those questions came to us from Twitter. All right, Frank, when will we get to see you on Joe Rogan's podcast? Well,
I don't know. I've tried. I've asked, and I don't know if it's maybe a little bit of a UFC issue. Yeah, I don't know if they really condone him maybe talking to me, especially with all the USADA stuff. And
I don't know. It's weird to me that you haven't done that one yet because, he does a lot of different stuff besides MMA, but you're a perfect fit for that because you can talk about a lot of stuff besides MMA, and he has a number of fighters on there. So, you know what I would say? That's from Jay Stat. I would say you, Jay, and whoever else, you should just message Rogan. Tell him you want to hear Frank on. If you guys can get the demand
there, then yeah, I'm not avoiding Joe Rogan's show. And maybe on his part is just I'm not on his radar.
Yeah.
But a little bit of me is sneaking suspicion that it might, in the circles he runs, it probably is not in his best interest to have me on the show.
Maybe. Yeah, but, reach out to him. Of course, Joe's got one of the most popular podcasts in the world, so it's not like there's not a queue of people, waiting to get on. But you would be you'd be a perfect fit for sure. Obviously, you guys have history, so I personally, Jay, I'm with you. I would like to hear that episode as well. All right, let's see. Here's an interesting one from Dank Alpha. Frank, who in your opinion comes closest to being the new Frank Mir in the MMA community? Do you see a younger fighter who reminds you of you in any way?
No, I can't say I do. And I think, and actually that's a good thing, I feel. I'm a hard act to follow. MMA's individualism, I think, is something that always attracted me to it. Mm-hmm. The fact that, look, remember when you were a kid, you were a little bit older, but remember when we were kids, we were watching Bloodsport, and then like the whole concept was all these different guys, different backgrounds, different characters, different styles of fighting, just different ways that they walked, and that's how, remember, if you watch the first UFC, that's kind of was the concept, right? It was, Kung Fu guy versus sumo wrestler.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I've always thought was interesting about the mixed martial arts or MMA is that it's like, it's all these separate individuals that bring their own history and their own spin on things. Whereas that's, I guess, why I always got mad back at the day when they, the Reebok deal, I'm like, hey man, part of our personality is different shorts, different people sponsored by different things because of what you like or don't like, like right now, I think your sponsors speak a lot of who you are. Like the individualism of MMA is what, again, attracted to me. And then again, going back to why I was mad about the Reebok deal, because you got rid of shorts and individualism of, well, this guy's wearing, cuts off his ankle bracelets in half because of some kind of style that he wants, or this guy's wearing baggy shorts, or this guy, Vale Tudo shorts. And then on that, the sponsors that you got pretty much spoke to who you were. Because, let's face it, most guys are not that popular in MMA that they're just having companies that they don't deal with run to them and go, hey, endorse my product. Most of the time it works out like how I am. Like, I'm sponsored by two main sponsors right now that I use as far as supplements go is Mitra Spec, which does Kratom, and Black Belt CBD. Well, the reason why I got into them is because I started taking CBD, and Robert at the gym started getting involved with the company that does CBD. I said, hey, give me some of their products so I can try it out. Tried it out, really liked it. Then all of a sudden started a relationship with them. Same thing with Kratom, right? Mitra Spec is owned by a girl named Sarah, right? Their company sells Kratom. And James Horn is a diehard hater of pain pills. He had a friend that passed away back when he was younger because of prescription medication. Horrible story. The guy, it made an impact on him. He didn't just tattoo, things on him for the memory, like it's still. And so, and he deals with a fused hip and back. So pain pills are something he's been exposed to in his life, even though there's a love-hate relationship, right? So he switched over to Kratom. Now he got me taking Kratom. And at first, I never even contact the company to ask for anything free. I put in an order, got the stuff, and then the company just figured out by looking at my name on the order when they sent it out, and they reached out on my social media like, hey, are you Francisco? Because that's my legal name when I order shit. I'm like, yeah, that's me. They're like, oh, you take our stuff? I'm like, yeah, your shit's great. I love it. I don't have to ever screw around with pain pills, which if anybody goes back and watches Mrs. Mirror's confession on me, it's no secret that I had an addiction, very badly to pain medication after I broke my leg. And now, I'm older, like what Austin's talking about. While I'm doing a set, I look like a stud. When I'm walking in between sets, I look like an old man. I'm hurting. And the Kratom has really changed me around. So then when people look at me as a fighter, I'm in Bellator now, I can put these things on my shorts, and there's an individualism to it. Like, oh, well, let me see what this guy's about. If I put, a Pornhub on my ass, that speaks to who I am as a person. They might be paying you, but the fact that you chose to do that, it says something about you. So as far, I guess, a really long answer to that question, like that's what I love about MMA is that we're such an individualized sport, and thankfully I don't see another Frank Mir. And you can't be another guy. Just it never works out. Be yourself.
You know how you know that there's not another Frank Mir out there right now is that no other fighter would have given that long of an answer to that question.
No, very few.
So it's a unique skill.
And the wrestling world will never see, the pro wrestling world's never going to see another Francisco Mir.
No.
The fabulous Francisco Mir.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, this is going to be it.
The feather boas.
Yeah. The sequin gowns.
I've been thinking about it.
You know, my full name is actually Francisco Santos Mir III. It's way Spanish.
Oh man,
I'm a
Can
Latin.
you fit that on the back of your
Try spelling that shit
sparkling
when you're in
robe?
kindergarten, man.
That's the
why
worst.
I used to go by Mir. It's so much easier. M-I-R. I'm like,
it.
my last name I got sold on.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm Frank the Saint Mir.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, Francisco Santos Mir III sounds like he should be discovering some land, like planting a flag for Spain or something.
Perfect.
Right?
We'll get you a flag.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. You always, that's your gimmick. You plant the flag in the ring like an explorer, like a conquistador, claiming it for yourself, right? And then, of course, the flag gets used for malfeasance as the foreign object during
you know,
the...
I mean, look, I mean, after victory, I can plant the flag. No.
You'll $1 million man style instead of stuffing the old dollar bill in their mouth. You know,
That's right.
Turn them over.
They get finished face down. So. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. All right. Let's see here. Here, this sounds like a loaded question. Now, is that Steve Grammas? He says,
my old buddy from high school, Steve.
Okay, well,
He's
then it
actually
makes
Kids'
sense.
Football coach right now.
Okay, he says, who was the coolest guy you hung out with in high school? That sounds like a loaded question.
Yeah, Steve. It was Jason Hales, man, coolest dude I know.
Did you have a lot of friends in high school? Or did you have a few close ones?
I had a lot of people that liked me, but I was very socially awkward when I was younger.
Yeah.
Look, my dad came from a different country. My mom was a redneck, so her social skills might not have been, up to par. You know, my mom, even nowadays, still just watches her videos, hides in her room. And my dad, he's very articulate now, but I mean, he came from a different country, so he's raising me while he's in his 20s. He's still figuring out, So my dad never had a friend when I grew up. My dad had no friends as far as there was a buddy that came over. So as a kid, I didn't really associate. Well, you have a friend. You know what I mean? I even remember the first time I tried to have a friend. I was in 4th or 5th grade, and this guy I befriended, and the kid asked me to spend the night at his house. And I remember my dad going, "Why would you do that?" I'm like, "Well, no, he wants me to spend the night. We're going to play, Nintendo."
Yeah.
He goes, and then my dad actually gave me the "Son, are you gay?" That's his interpretation of it at the time. I'm like, I don't think so, but I mean, when I get back, yeah. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, no, I didn't have a ton of people and not that people weren't open to being friendly with me, and I was friendly back, but I was very shy and introverted. So I had probably 3 good friends, Steve, Jason, and then a guy named Rob, were probably my closest friends throughout high school, that hung out at their house, gave me rides places and stuff.
I always had a lot of acquaintances in high school, but I didn't have a lot in common with them. So I would be friendly with them or whatever at school, but then at night I was off with my playing in my blues band with guys that were old enough to be my grandpa. So those were kind of the guys I was hanging out with then. All right, Frank, let's see. Here's an interesting one from Adam. He says, Frank, because of how things ended with the UFC and your current situation, do you think they are going to hold out on you, giving you a spot in the Hall of Fame when you officially retire?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You think so?
Yeah.
Now, this is interesting because I think you're a no-brainer Hall of Famer. I think about it. I mean, the UFC has people that they have put in the Hall of Fame after they've had some rocky roads with.
Yeah,
Tito Ortiz comes to mind.
Right, but was he retired by the time they put him in there, or was he still actively fighting?
Yeah, they've always retired. Sometimes they come back, but at the time they go in, they're retired.
Oh, okay.
Now, that's going to buy some time because I don't think they would do it now because you're still an active fighter. I
Yeah.
think they would wait until you retire. Because I'll tell you what they won't do. I don't think they're going to take an active Bellator fighter, put him in the Hall of Fame, and draw attention to that. So I think they'll wait till you're done. So we're really talking at the earliest couple of years down the road.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, the good news is that I'm actually in Nevada Sports Hall of Fame, and I was the first MMA fighter, UFC fighter to ever make it in there. And so I was alongside the guys like, Mike Tyson,
Yeah. Here's one for me. Richard, what's your take on the allegations with Joe Biden, and do you think they will use that against him in the primaries? Interesting question. So, have you heard about this last couple of days with Joe Biden?
I'm going to explain something that's kind of sad here, and this is why I think that we need to make sure that we really start criminalizing women that falsely speak out. And I know that there's an argument that, like, well, you can't do that. I'm like, we absolutely have to be able to do that because what's happening is you're causing this syndrome that I now have. That when I first hear of, like, oh, Biden was about to fucking probably announce that he was running for president, and now someone came out of the woodwork and claims inappropriate action. I'm not saying that it wasn't real or it didn't happen, but the problem is because it just seems way too convenient. I got to tell you that my bullshit radar is on fucking, like, nope. Hold on a second. That's just, you know what I mean? Like, so, I have kind of glossed over, to be honest with you. I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'll pay attention to other two because right now no one has any answers. Everybody's just going to be bullshitting about what they think and what this person thinks. And in maybe 2 or 3 months from now, the real story will come out, and that's when I'll pay attention again. Because right now it's like it's one of those things where, like, what do you think they're going to say? I don't know. I don't want to sit here and debate with you because no matter what we debate, we don't know what they're going to say. So let's just go to the meeting and hear what they're going to say.
The allegation that Adam's talking about is, and it was made by a former Nevada state legislator, actually, Lucy Flores, recently, that a few years back, 3 or 4 years ago, she is running for lieutenant governor. Biden is there to endorse her. They're off stage, waiting to go on stage, public around, so it's not just the two of them standing there. And that she feels him put his hands on her shoulders, and he kisses her on the back of the head. And smells her hair. That was the other thing she said. She feels kind of like breathe in, and he kissed her on the back of the head. So to address Adam's question, here's my
Did she do
thing
anything
about
at that time? Is there any documentation that she said anything?
Well, no.
Then
No.
That's my issue with it. And then.
Yeah.
And I had this argument with someone. I go, hey, if something happens, then you do something. And they're like in the Kavanaugh case, right? I'm like, you're going to wait this long to say something? Like, well, now he's in a position where he could affect people. I got to say something. Like, no. Look, wrong is wrong. If he's a sexual predator, it's wrong whether he works at fucking McDonald's or he's the president of the United States. Both are wrong. Right? It doesn't matter what your title is. If you have inappropriate conduct, you have inappropriate conduct. And this whole thing, well, I just wait. I'm like, to me, it just seems too convenient. Like, oh, they have the headlines. Let me jump on the headlines, too.
Here's the best way I know to explain my answer to Adam's question, maybe draw a difference between Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby, which are like legit Me Too scumbags. And
there's no doubt in my mind.
Right.
If you have 50 women that come up and say, hey, this guy fucking touched me. Come on.
Yeah.
You have a couple hundred people that say something about you. It's fucking true.
Here's how I feel about this. And I think that it's a time, and I remember when all of this first started making the news, you and I talked about this on the podcast. I said, I want to be real careful at a time like this because I don't want to do a disservice to the people who have been legitimately assaulted.
100%.
Let's don't water
They're
down.
the biggest victims in this situation is the people that truly do have issues and don't want to come out. We've talked about that in the past.
Yeah.
They're the ones that get screwed over the most when someone makes a false allegation or exaggerates or takes something out of context. So it's like, well, now you're taking away legitimacy because now you have it just becomes it's like gunfire. It's like everybody's shooting. It's like, yeah, but now it's a distraction. Or, it's like you never realize how much noise is ambient going around you until like everything gets silent. Because if everything's loud, if you're walking the city, all the noises, you can't pick one noise out. Now you go camping in the woods, someone steps on a twig, and you're like, oh shit, that was loud. Because now it doesn't have background to blur it out.
The way that the first thing that comes to mind when I heard about the Biden situation, to Adam's question, is, and I'll equate this to myself. So I am not someone who initiates a hug, let's say, with the opposite sex if I don't know them or I'm just friendly with them. Now, if they hug me,
I've done more than my share of awkward handshakes with women.
But now here's the thing: if they hug me, I'll hug them back. It's fine. It's a friendly thing. It's not.
I let the female decide what conduct is appropriate.
That's right. Now I'm not doing that because I'm afraid of being accused of assault. I just think that's more appropriate.
I agree with 100%. Right. Same thing. I don't approach women.
Yeah.
If like that's happened before, where like if I see a woman left her lights on in a car and we're at Walmart and she's walking, if I got to get her attention, I still keep quite a bit of distance from us. I don't feel like it's ever appropriate for a man to walk up on a female. Yeah. It's because one, I'm 6'2", 270 pounds, but I just feel like that's an uncomfortable thing to do. Let them choose. How close they want to get, how close they feel comfortable. Same thing with the 100% right on body language.
Yeah.
I never touch anybody until they show me what you feel is appropriate.
I don't want them feeling like just because they're a female that I feel an entitlement to just come in for the hug or whatever if we don't have that kind of relationship. Yeah. But if they do, I'll hug back, right? But when I see something like this, there's a lot of old guys who, grandpas and old dads and stuff like that might hug or something like that, and especially in a public setting. Like, you know what it reminds me of? Remember before George H.W. Bush kicked the bucket, that people were talking about how he would tell the David Copperfield joke because he's in a wheelchair when he put his arm around somebody to take a picture. This is kind of that to me. I could see a situation where maybe one of his kids might say, "Hey, Dad, maybe let's kind of don't do that same old joke over and over again." But maybe just that, and that's probably good enough.
I don't want to speak to the specific Biden case, but I think what your point is valid is that, again, it goes back to context, right? And my thing is, I used to adopt very much a similar mindset of the being very cautious and the handshake and recently, and again, I've been in relationships a lot too, so there was also those respect boundaries for your significant other in that case of what everyone's comfortable with, right? Especially when you're in the entertainment industry. But now I really just try to treat people the same instead of treating women and men differently. Because I've noticed a lot of guys do that, and I've done that. When you say hello to a female, you're going to address them maybe differently. Again, I kind of busted my buddy's balls. They call it Google eyes. When he says what's up to his friends, it's hey, what's up? When his girl's hi, it's hi, nice to meet you. And so I just try to treat people like people now because I think that's really what women want. We don't, and I don't have any problem saying hey, what's up, buddy? And I don't want to feel like if I do this to a woman now somehow that's sexual because not everything has to be sexual, and love doesn't have to be an affection, doesn't have to have a sexual connotation. And if we start muddying that up and not differentiating, that's going to be a slippery slope that we're all going to be I'm like I said, almost paranoid now in how you address women because it's a very combustible landscape.
I will say,
actually, what I'm most paranoid with on that level, not so much with women, but with children. As far as when there's little kids around, if I'm like, I was just at my grandson's birthday party, and I'm walking through and there's lots of kids. I lift my hands up when I walk near other people's children, just because obviously I just don't ever want to be misinterpreted and misunderstanding. Kid screams and I knocked him on the back of the head or something. I'm like, well, I'm just walking. It was an accident. You know what I mean? I get paranoid, and then. To your point of what you're talking about, different people act different ways, right? As far as age, you got to kind of look at when they, their physical conduct, right? And I don't know if Biden falls under this one, but he seems kind of like that touchy-feely kind of guy, but not no predator. I remember I was up on stage because I helped with the campaign on just one of the people did like a PSA type for Harry Reid, who's our 5-time senator. So I sat down. One of the people endorsed him and stuff, and so we're on stage when he got reelected, right? So I'm one of the Dana White's up there. We're all up there, right? And so as he's going through and thanking everybody, I went to shake his hand. He reached up with both his hands and watch, hold this.
Oh.
And embraced my face. I'm looking at him.
That's the way my great grandma used to kiss me. She grabbed my cheeks.
So he just sat there. He's you're the fighter. I used to box. He starts telling me how he boxes. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I knew that about you. I mean, I got a phone, Wikipedia. So I'm just sitting there, and to me, it was slightly uncomfortable because amongst our age group, we don't put our hands on someone's face. It's deemed inappropriate for me to, right now, even just, it's like, that's fucking weird, right? But in my brain, I went, oh, late 70s, you know what I mean? That just, he doesn't mean nothing disrespectful by it. He's not trying to punk me or, he's not alpha mailing me. He's just having a moment of hey, buddy, what's going on? The equivalent of what I would probably grab someone by the tricep and be like, hey, good job. Maybe in 40 years from now, I do that to some young kid and grab him by his tricep. He's like, yo, grandpa, what the hell are you doing? Whereas now with the hands on the face. So I think sometimes there has to be some flexibility of understanding.
Yeah.
Hey, what was the intent? I guess that's my only thought. I mean, he's here in our judicial system. What was your intent?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Did you intend, shit, you could have a gun in your car. What was your intent? You can have everything from first-degree murder to just, well, no, it was just self-protecting. I mean, the gun itself doesn't necessarily mean something.
Yeah.
But what was your intent to do with such a device?
Kellyanne Conway I will say this: Kellyanne Conway, Trump's senior advisor, was on television commenting on this Biden thing, saying, "Oh yeah, all you have to do is Google creepy Joe Biden, and you'll see these photos of him hugging." And I thought to myself, "Lady, you need to sit this one out.
Wow.
Like this is one that maybe you just say." You know what? I probably shouldn't wade into. I mean, can you imagine the nerve?
That's one thing that honestly, and like I'm gonna, I've always been very back and forth. Everybody that listens to the show knows, and I'm a very medium, up the middle type of guy, right? But not only is just what I've seen as far as some of the things that he's tried to pass, but the one thing that really has lost me on Trump's whole group is that they're a bunch of fucking bullies. The way they talk to people, like, the Adam Schiff guy kept saying, skinny neck, skinny neck. I'm all, you're the fucking president of the United States, dude. Like, it's okay, like, if Dana White says fuck every other word or acts a certain way. He's the president of a fight organization, right? And Trump, when you were just Trump the fucking businessman, you could be a fucking bully and be an asshole if you want to. But now you're the fucking leader of the fucking most powerful country in the world, and you're using terms.
Yeah, he got elected on being a bully.
But it's like you're fucking Biff from fucking Back to the Future. Right. I'm like, holy shit, that's the president? Like, you're talking like that?
He got mandated in his mind, like, this is what they want to see. They want this kind of talk. They want this.
Yeah, honestly, now, man, I mean, at first I thought Bernie Sanders, like, I started Googling him. I want to know more about the guy I'm probably voting for in 2020.
Well, I think it's all a ruse anyway, so. But I want to go back to something that was said with the Biden thing. When you look culturally, what was acceptable, you even go back, think of things like Married with Children, one of my favorite shows growing up. You couldn't put that on the air nowadays.
Yeah.
Because now we cater to the lowest common offender. Like, whoever's offended the lowest level, that's who we have to make sure we don't hurt feelings. But I assume any, like, old, white, wealthy guy over the age of, like, 50 has done something inappropriate at some point along his life, because the rules of engagement back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s were different. So if we're going to go back and look and use, like, the old fire codes from the 30s, and, I'm saying, like, we can't go back and dig stuff up and go, well, this is inappropriate. Yeah, it was a different time then. And we're growing as a culture, but we're not addressing all the issues. We're cherry picking a lot of times.
Speaking of different time, how about this analogy? It's like, to me, what we're talking about is the difference between someone in, like, Jim Crow era South maybe using the word colored versus burning a cross on someone's lawn. You know what I'm saying?
My grandpa's 92. He says Negro.
Yeah, he's
not racist.
One is an inappropriate thing to say. The other is a violation of someone's civil rights. You know what I'm saying?
Grandparents on my mom's side maternally say that, they're colored. And I was like, what? You don't use those words, but, like, still when you talk in those contexts now, it's like, Grandma, that's really borderline, if not straight out inappropriate.
Right, but there's levels.
I think that you hear a 90-year-old person say something, I'm like, well, they're 90. They come from a different era.
And the whole point is we're not raising cultures of men and women to put context and intent behind things. We're treating everything the same, and it's dangerous because everything's in a soundbite and everything is, it's hard to get context when you read something.
People, I tell you what, I think this is just weakness of the human condition, but I think people always gravitate toward, especially weaker-minded people, always gravitate toward black and white instead of shades of gray, because shades of gray require deductive reasoning. If it's black and white, when we encounter a situation, I can just go, wait, what's the rule? Do we have a set rule? Let me refer to the book.
But it's backwards in what you're saying, though. You know what I mean? Like, you're absolutely right. People keep reverting everything to black and white, and that's not because they're coming to a conclusion that's either black or white. Because usually, if you take anything far enough, things are very fucking gray. It's like, well, this is more or less good, and this is more or less bad over here. Like, there's very few things you say, hey, this is a bullet to the head, black and white. The problem is what everybody does nowadays is they have a conclusion that they've already came up with. And all they're trying to do, like right now, it's like, okay, Biden's the bad guy. What can I do to prove that point? Where instead of sitting there going, well, hold on, let me look through his history and come to a conclusion afterwards and go, well, I might not want to have a beer with the guy, but I don't mind him running, the government,
Yeah.
So. No, it's just because it's should I talk about all the time. the world's not black and white, right?
Right.
It's not black and white.
Yeah.
Then what do you guys talk about? Politics.
Mm-hmm.
We are raised to look at the world as blue or red. You one or the other. It's
Yeah.
black and white. We are raised to think in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people can't comprehend gray, we're going, well, why can't people comprehend gray? Because from the time on, Reagan. How old was I when Reagan was there? At this age, I'm already seeing you're either blue or you're red. You're either on this side or this side. You got to pick one or two ways. It is black and white, and that's what's
You know what I call
man.
that, Austin? I call that
The illusion of choice.
No, I call it the pro wrestling mentality because
That's
it's the baby face and the heel.
That's all it is.
Now that's the old way. Newer popular characters in wrestling sometimes exhibit shades of gray. Like Steve Austin was one of the first ones where he's a baby face, but he plays by his own rules, kind of thing. Which that's the world of fantasy and entertainment, but appropriate lesson in the sense that, hey, we can see good and bad in the same person. But that old pro wrestler mentality or the old Western, it's the white hat and the black hat. That is telegraphing for you who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. And people, I think, get scared when they realize, wait a second, I'm in a room full of gray. I'm in a room full of mixed bags. Yeah.
This is the devil. This is not.
Yeah. Well, and that's religion for you. Let's end on hopefully something a little inspirational here, because this is a heavy question. It's the heaviest one we got all night. But let's see. Frank's got an answer for him here. Someone, here we go. This one's from Jesse on Facebook. He says, what is the best piece of advice or words of wisdom you can give to someone who has hit rock bottom in their life? Oh, boy.
Hey, look, the sun will rise tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's something that no matter what I always think of, and look, you have ups and downs. There's ebbs and flows, right? You're going to hit the bottom. You're going to hit the top. Look at my career. I've had moments where I've been at the very top. I have moments where I've been at the bottom and then been back at the fucking top again. The one constant is that you can't stop time. Shit keeps moving forward, right? So you can sit there and just freeze and go, fuck, life is just horrible. I just don't want to be here. I'm like, well, you're here, you're still existing, and you're going to exist until tomorrow, most likely. So then that's my advice, is to sit there and go, look, just one foot in front of the next. You sit there and evaluate. It's like, all right, well, shit's bad. Like, what can I do? Just start moving. You know what I mean? Like, that's the one thing that was really great in my fight with Noguera. I always make jokes to everybody in the second one, is that, like, look, shit couldn't get any worse. I just kept moving. Well, okay, well, this is bad. Well, what's in front of me right now? Like, what is the most immediate thing that I need to do? It might go eat.
You're talking about like when it looks like he's rocked you.
Yeah,
It looks like you
he's
might
put
be
me
on
in
the
the
verge
choke.
of getting
Yeah.
finished, and then you end up
One problem at a time. And the
submitting
human brain
it,
can
yeah.
only solve one problem at a time.
Yeah.
And that's how I do things. I'm like, hey, look, time's going to keep clicking on. I can either sit here and just and just soak, and drown in self-pity. And I'll give myself a few minutes to do that. You know what I mean? All right, I'm going to fucking, hide in my room for a little while because I'm a piece of shit and I hate the world, right? But then I'll get up and go, okay, what is my immediate issue that I got to address right now? Well, like, I'm hungry. All right, well, go get some food. You know what I mean? Like, as simple as that sounds, or as moronic it could be, it's like, well, you're just one problem in front of the next. All right, I'd like to go eat. Well, are you going to eat healthy? Well, no. Well, why not? Or what are you going to do? Or how are you going to get there? I don't have a car. Well, what could be the next steps to make sure that you do have a car? Like, you just, honestly, I'll talk my problems out with myself and sit there and go, wow, my shoulder hurts. I tore something, right? All right, well, do I need to make an appointment with the doctor? If so, what process do I go through on there? Oh, let me go on YouTube and look up videos on how to deal with someone who has a similar injury that I do. Oh, okay, look, this can be done, this can be done, that can be done. And then now all of a sudden you start gaining momentum because you're problem solving one thing at a time. Chopping down a forest. A forest can seem overwhelming, and that's old proverb, like, how do you cut down a forest? One tree at a time. So when that shit gets really bad for me, I just start focusing, all right, that is within my capability and my power to deal with right now, is that tree right there. What about that tree over there? I'm like, I don't know. I'll deal with that tree when I get to it. You're right. From here, it looks like I'll never be able to get to that tree. It's fucking on a ledge and I'm probably going to kill myself trying to do it. I don't have the proper equipment. But you know what? That's not my problem right now. It's so far off in the future, I don't got to worry about it. Let me worry about the tree right in front of me. How can I deal with this one?
I have come to realize about you. I don't think I've ever maybe told you this exactly, but I'll just say it here publicly. That I think of anyone that I know, you deal with adversity probably better than anybody I've ever seen. because you just maintain a calmness. Like I've seen you in some stuff where it's like, where just as the person witnessing it, I'm like, man, this is complicated. This is heavy. Like, whoa, this'll ruin your day, to say the least. And not that, but the thing is, you're not in denial about it, because that's a mistake a lot of people will make, is they'll cross over into, I'll just ignore it.
Water and there's a shark there. You can't close your eyes and go, there's no shark. There's no shark. The shark's still there. Reality still exists whether you want to accept it or not.
Yeah, you don't ignore it, but you have a real calmness in navigating through it, I guess.
And I think that's what
interesting
martial arts has taught me.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's actually why one of the things I want to go back to school for is math. I think math is actually good at teaching your brain problem solving in schools, because even though I have a high school level education, I can look at the most complex problems that I'm able to understand, and if you break it down, they're still super simple. It's like, well, there's an order of operations, and that's what you go for first.
Yeah, there's logic.
If you think about it, that's what life. You can look at the most complex problem, and they're really just a compounded solution that's super simple. That just it's just this right here is what you take care of, and then you do this and you do that. But if you look at the big picture, life can be overwhelming. And I've had problems, like you said, that have come at me. And if I look at the whole picture, it's like, where the fuck do I even begin? And that's where it's like looking at the knot, the Celtic knot. I'm like, well, just pick a spot and start there. You know what I mean?
I say this to the hookers at the brothel. I say, when you come to me with this mountain of issues, I have to take them one at a time.
Yeah.
Just tell me one specific thing first that Candy said to you that got you upset, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, as you said, you always focus on the things you can control immediately, not the things that are out of your control. And then, one thing I've always gone to, and even the worst of times, what's the lesson here? Like, what's the reason behind this? What can I pull from this? Like, there's I might not know it now. It might be 6 months or a year from now. I'm going to look back and go, I needed this to teach me this so I can be here now.
Yeah, you get something.
And when you think like that, you go, okay, well, I'm going to deal with this. And there's going to be something, and it's not showing it right now, but at some point it'll reveal itself, and I go, that's why I had to deal with this right now.
Very strong. All right, good one to end on. Let's do this. Austin, since you were our special guest here, tell everybody where they can find you these days. You want anybody to follow you on social media, that kind of stuff?
I've been kind of laying low a little bit. I realize sometimes we get caught up trying to show everyone what we're doing instead of just doing stuff.
Yes.
Some people like to show everyone how they're living the life. I've just been kind of living it. But if you want to follow me at Austin Healy Aries, Healy, that's on my Instagram, Austin Healy Aries. Austin Aries on Twitter. And that's about it for right now.
Austin's got a great book called Food Fight.
Oh, yeah.
This is actually how I met Austin originally. Austin is a vegan athlete, and he wrote a book about it. It's about other things, too, as wrestling stories, but it's called Food
Drug
Fight.
trafficking.
Yeah,
life lessons.
Yeah, a couple of detours, but you should check it out. Even if you're not a pro wrestling fan per se, you're just kind of a fan of a good life story. Check out his book, Food Fight.
You find that theaustinaries.com, all the information on the website there.
Now, are you going to be up on the East Coast the same time?
You know what?
As
I had some offers to come up, but I wasn't really motivated again to be in New York this weekend. I did last year. I was there for WrestleMania, and I got out before Sunday. I was in for a few days and left, kind of like Frank's going to do. But no, I decided to sit this one out. And next year maybe we'll do something.
Okay. Well, I'm glad Frank had you to help him with training, because my limited time working in the dark carnival known as pro wrestling so many years ago, I've shared with you, Austin, it's like it can be a really nasty business. Not saying that's the case with Josh's promotion. I'm just saying in general.
In general.
And so it's actually really good that you've got somebody that's a good person that you can trust when you're entering that world, because boy, it can be a rough it can be a rough scene. All right, Frank, so you're headed off to New Jersey for the big pro wrestling debut. As I said, everybody can stream this on Fight TV on Thursday, and you can watch Frank take on the Beast, Dan Severin, Josh Barnett, of course, also on the card, and some other recognizable folks. Frank, tell everybody how to follow us on social media.
On Facebook and Instagram, it's Phone Booth Fighting. At Snapchat and Twitter. Are you still running the Snapchat?
Yep.
You got Snapchat going?
I got to dust. I got to do some Snapchatting. I just go ahead.
Snapchat's for all the guys that are fucking messing around anyways. We don't
Yeah.
Snapchat and Twitter. Phone Booth Fight.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Follow us there anyway if you're
there's
so
a long
inclined to
exchange
Snapchat.
Between that, it's because he edited out all the shit I was talking about.
Yeah. Just give us follows, help us build our social media platform. And honestly, if you're going to do one thing for us to support the show, the most important thing you can do is tell a friend about the show, and that's how we grow it one organic listener at a time. If you look us up on iTunes, hit those 5 stars on the rating system. That keeps us in the tops of their algorithms. And if you have a moment, write a favorable line or two. We really appreciate you doing all that. So from Stately Mirror Manor on this guerrilla-style episode of Phone Booth Fighting, for our special guest, Austin Aries, and for Frank Mir, I'm Richard Hunter, and we'll see you right back here next week on Phone Booth Fighting.